Everybody, welcome to those joining online. Welcome to another SportWorks Talks. A very inspiring and a great topic to be covering today with Anne-Cécile. I think you'll really enjoy this presentation. It covers such an important topic, and having been through some of the material that we're going to see today, I believe you'll really enjoy this. I want to say just a few bit of housekeeping before we get started. As with all our webinars, we ask you to please log your questions in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end. The presentation will run for about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. If we can't get to all your questions, we will do our best to answer them after the event, and we'll post those online so we can so you can follow up your answers. Also, just saying that the presentation we're about to start, and I want to say thank you for joining us. So, Anne-Cécile, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Good afternoon, everyone. So while I'm waiting for the presentation to happen, I'm the Sustainability Director of the Ocean Race. And for those who don't know the Ocean Race, it's around the world professional sailing race, and the race was previously called the Volvo Ocean Race, and before that was the Whitbread. We are going to celebrate 50 years in 73, and I think it's what we call the ultimate test of a team in professional sport. 9 months around the world, 10 stopovers, teamwork on board, facing the most extreme conditions at sea, offshore racing. So as images speak louder than words, we're going to show you a little video as an introduction, just to highlight not what is the race about, but more what we've done on the race during the last edition of the race, around the sustainability program, and how we've used the power of sport to inspire positive change. So if Christian, you can launch the video, I think it's a good introduction for the purpose.
Our drifter boy, we're about to deploy him into the Southern Ocean.
We've been able to gather microplastic data concentration into a global map to understand better where is the pollution. We've been able to gather microplastic data concentration into a global map to understand better where is the pollution. It's more about where it's not than where it is.
There's just an unbelievable amount of marine debris. Seeing all kinds of stuff, plastic bags and nets and different sorts of bottles, and it's really sad to see. Unbelievable amount of marine debris. Seeing all kinds of stuff, plastic bags and nets and different sorts of bottles. It's really sad to see.
such visibility on ocean issues.
The Volvo Ocean Race.
8-month-long race around the world, trying to raise awareness of the damage done to our oceans through plastic waste.
Volvo Ocean Race.
8-month-long race around the world, trying to raise awareness of the damage done to our oceans through plastic waste.
I think that there's a growing awareness around the world about the problem of waste, whether it's on land or in the ocean. In the 12 stopover cities around the world, 3 million people were touched, thousands of people at the ocean summits. And in that sense, we have definitely created a template that other sporting organizations can use. And as much as we're all part of the problem, we realize that our summits and in our partnerships that we are also part of the solution. And that's an exciting place to be. And as much as we're all part of the problem, we realize that our summits and partnerships that we are also part of the solution. And that's an exciting place to be.
So that's an exciting place to be. That's a good conclusion and a good introduction for the next edition of the race. So as the images have shown, we really believe in the power of sport to inspire change and to create a fantastic network and a fantastic community to actually act concretely. So last edition of the race, we've touched almost 3 million visitors. We have managed to have the people sign the pledge. We've collected scientific data. And and of course, we've reduced single-use plastic across all our ocean race events, and it allowed us to win 6 amazing awards. It means that we have been recognized by the industry with the progress we've made on using the power of sport in our sustainability area, specifically targeting the SDG number 14. But we didn't want to stop there, and we're lucky enough to have partners supporting us, such as 11th Hour Racing or Blue Water, who saw and shared the same vision and who saw the opportunity of using the race as an inspiration to create additional change, even in between the 2 events. And that's quite unique in our world for a sport event that is happening every 4 years, to have a team, sustainability team, supported by partners in between the 2 events to actually keep on the momentum. So we've created together with the partners a vision. And all these words have been carefully chosen because we need to define our role and to make sure we are adding value. So we are a catalyst to accelerate ocean health restoration. So beyond sport, we want to really create impact and influence change. We've put sustainability at the heart of the race. We've redesigned the brand identity, and the new logo is also expressing circularity. And we're creating a look and feel that is supporting our program. And the program you see here is based on 3 main areas: impact, footprint, and legacy. And the whole thinking behind that strategy is that we not only want to put the house in order the best way possible, following the main criteria on how to organize a sustainable event, following is ISO 20121 and the GRI, but we want to use our voice and make sure we leave a positive legacy. So this quick presentation is about how we've managed to do that and how we will do that hopefully even better next time. Next edition of the race is supposed to start in October 2021 from Alicante, and will last 9 months around the world until June. And we're lucky enough in that context to have 18 months in front of us to be able to organize the race. So we have aligned the strategy with the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, focusing on number 14, life below water, and making sure that we are aligned with the best international criteria for how to organize sustainable events. And we're very happy to launch this new program. So it's not about sustainability, it's about racing with purpose. And racing with purpose is the new name of our sustainability program. and we will see how we translate that into concrete action. So first and foremost, our science program was one of the well-recognized program last time. Here you see on this picture Liz Wardley, who's sailing on board a boat called Turn the Tide on Plastic, who's collating data sample and microplastic sample. And it's suddenly transforming the sailing race into a scientific expedition on top of the sport to gather data to better understand the ocean, because we're going in some places that are totally unknown in the most remote part of the planet, and allowing that sport event to collect scientific data, contributing to the scientific community to better understand, to better predict, and to better preserve the ocean. It was a fantastic program. Next time, and that's a new thinking, and that's, I think, something that the sports industry can really be using in the future, and that's where I like to show how we can create change. We've changed the rules of the game, and we have installed in the new notice of race in renewable energy on board. So every sailing team participating in the ocean race will have to have a minimum of renewable energy on board, which is an amazing sign for the whole industry, for the innovators, and for the boat builders, that we want to push that subject even further. We also want to implement sustainability within the whole production chain and value of boat building and in the boat building industry. So we have organized an innovation workshop on sustainable boat building, and we're working with the whole community to make sure that that systemic approach is implemented. So the first pillar of this strategy is about the impact. And I think the impact is important because it's understanding who are we talking to, and how are we going to talk to them, and how are we going to most of all involve them. So we have in mind an awareness campaign. So last edition of the race, it was done in partnership with UN Environment and Clean Seas, to actually use our voice to influence the general public, the fans, and the race village visitors across the world. We also have what we call a more influencers series of events and a more B2B approach with the Ocean Race Summit series. We have launched the first one in Genoa last September in Italy, and the next one will be in The Hague on the 27th of May in a month. That will be transformed from a live event to a virtual event, but it will be an amazing event with high-level speakers to actually really make sure that we're providing a solution exchange platforms to restore and accelerate the restoration of ocean health. So note that in your agenda. There will be a public version of the event. And it's not only about organizing another series of events. It's certainly more to create a platform for commitments. And here you see an image from last time, gathering the IOC, Clean Seas, UN Environment, the World Sailing, and famous sailors to actually create platform for collaboration to beat plastic pollution. And that's what we're about. That's what we want to create. A second big pillar that has been recognized by a very prestigious award last December is the education program. So last time we've created the education program designed for primary schools for the kids to 6 to 12 years old, translated in 7 languages. And now we're doing the same thing, but we're enlarging the education program to the secondary schools. And we're also creating a path for professional development. And last edition of the race, it was a big success. We've reached more than, and the figures are growing because the program is available for free online. We've reached more than 50 countries, more than 120,000 kids. And it's also a platform for the sailors to reach their own communities. And here you see in that picture Bianca Cook, who is the New Zealander skipper of a future boat on the ocean race, talking to the schools in New Zealand and to talk about through our education program to engage the future generation. We also have a youth academy to engage the young sailing talents on our sustainability criteria, following the path of the professional sailors. So that's a very important path for us to engage the big and general public and several layers of stakeholders. But of course, we have a sport event, and talking to the sports industry, I think you all can relate to that. We have race villages, and we want them to be a platform for sustainable innovation. Here on that image, you can see the entrance of the Gothenburg in Sweden, race village, last edition of the race. So it was a vegetal entrance powered by electric buses with gardens and fruit juices. And we really want to picture a positive image of what can it be to live a more sustainable life. And we can do that through the small race village, because they are somehow mini labs for sustainable innovation. We are having to deal with water, energy, waste, and it's a fantastic platform to test innovations. And we're doing that for the next edition in partnership with all the host cities along the way. Here you can see Alicante at the start of the race. And we're now working with a team, a dedicated team around sustainability that is helping us prepare that progress all around the world. And that's a very journey. So on this image, we also have partnered with organizations such as Blue Water, providing freshwater fountains, allowing us to reduce by 400,000 the number of plastic bottle consumed on site. We have partnerships that adding purpose. So here an example of Sky Ocean Rescue campaign, where the partners can come on board and bring their innovation, their thinking, their services, and their message to the public. So that's a very strong pillar, and that's what we also want to showcase in the future, is how partners can come to the village, can come to the race, can come to the event, create ecosystem of brands that are benefiting from each other. So we're launching this Partnership with Purpose program, where you can not only showcase your logo on an event, which is of course the main value with all the community outreach, with all the media impact, but you can also showcase the services in relation to other potential clients or distributors. And it's used as a very strong B2B platform. So we're launching ecosystem of brands around renewable energy, around recycling, around sustainable mobility. So all these themes are highlighted by our existing partners. I'm thinking about Volvo cars, for example, but they could be joined by additional partners to create a link of an ecosystem of brands that will not only help us to reduce our own impact, but also drive the communication and the engagement around the clock and for the general public. So that's an important point. And we also want to leave a positive legacy. And that's for us a very important element, because sports events sometimes can go in and out, and we need to think about the public. We need to think about all the stakeholders who are engaging. And this edition, we've also creating a program on inclusion and diversity. Last edition of the race, we also have changed the race rules, forcing somehow positive discrimination, female sailors to sail on board the sailing teams. And that was a great success. And this rule has been extended to the next edition of the race. Next edition of the race will see 2 classes of boats, what we call the IMOCA 60 and the 65 category. And all of these boats will have women on board. And that's an interesting area where, by creating the context for female participation, we're also creating a path for female sailors and for female talents to actually have a destination in their future career. And we're also working a lot with all the communities on site, with the volunteers, with the local NGOs that are working around the events to make sure that we are reducing our waste, we are improving the welcome, and we are facilitating the inclusion with the local communities. And that's, I was interviewed recently on an event around inclusion and diversity, the Sustainable Leaders Congress. And that's a topic that sport can push a lot further. I really believe in that. So as a reminder of the theme, impact, footprint, and legacy, I think what we also need to showcase here is the fact that all our program, we want it to be as open source as possible, as shareable as possible. So we're creating a sustainability knowledge center with a very exhaustive sustainability report from last edition of the race with lots of best practice and case studies, and also guides on how to organize a single-use plastic-free event. And all our learning and education program is also very open source. We've just launched last week a partnership with World Sailing, where World Sailing has used the Ocean Race to create its own education program, and it's a fantastic opportunity for us to reach millions of kids around the world to make sure that when there's too much wind or not enough wind, they can learn about the ocean and learn how to preserve it. So that's about it for my presentation. I think what we've experienced on the Ocean Race last edition is that we can really use the power of sport to engage all our stakeholders in something that is maybe bigger than sport, in something that is really going to change. Last time we've created a movement around plastic pollution. Next time we want to create a movement to not only raise awareness about the ocean state and status, but also engage additional stakeholders to accelerate its restoration. And that for us is very important. An important date to note is the 27th of May, where we're going to organize the Ocean Race Summit. It's a webinar virtual event, very high level, and that it will be a very interesting way to engage with the community and to understand how everybody can take action and take part in that solution exchange platform that we are creating. So together for the ocean, and I hope you can join the race. So Christian, I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah, what a great presentation, Anne-Cécile. Thank you so much. It's this program, and I think you've summarized it so well, having such a clear strategy to be able to deliver on this. But I also know you've been working on this for quite some time, and to see this evolve must be quite rewarding, I guess, in many ways, to have that, to see this project from its infancy to where it is today.
I have to say, we've started small with the belief and the conviction of the people behind us. And what was quite unique is that it grew with the race, and for the first time probably in the history of the race, we were welcoming partners along the way, and that ended up with a team of 10 people working full-time in delivering the sustainability program that we are keeping. And I think it's a fantastic experience to share, to give to the other organizers, the other organizations, or other stakeholders, the feeling that it's possible and we can do something about it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that my takeaways from this is that you've been able to transform the event holistically into its focus, not only about the sport and the racing, but it is also its message. And I think partnerships with purpose, racing for purpose, really echoes one of the presentations we had earlier in the week with Paolo when he was talking about rights management and how we can engage in the future. What you're demonstrating here and what the Ocean Race has demonstrated is that it's very, very viable and very, very achievable. But an amazing amount of effort from you and your team and the collective to get it there. What would you say has been the biggest challenge to getting it to this point?
Well, I would say the biggest challenge is probably one of the reasons why I feel that our industry has failed in many ways to make our voice heard. And we've always presented sustainability as a painful path, and that was a mistake. Sustainability is in reality very motivating, very engaging. It's creating brand value. It's telling new stories. It's adding purpose for the staff, for the organization, for all the stakeholders. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer now that we've all been working in that space for a long time, but now the world is on hold. I really hope that it's an occasion for us to look around, get some perspective, and even at the highest level of decision makers, understand the opportunity we have to reinvent, to shift the focus of our organizations and integrate environmental and social criteria in the key measurement factors of all our organizations. It's possible.
No, this program absolutely demonstrates that. It's wonderful, so wonderful to see. So we've got a question in here. So is the current crisis changing your discussion with corporate partners on sustainability? And if so, how? It's a good question.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very good question because, in fact, we're quite interested and positively surprised that the discussions we have with the potential sponsors, are, I wouldn't say reinforced, but the sustainability area is certainly something that is long-term thinking, adding purpose, adding value, and that's not something people are ready to drop. It's not a quick win, just brand exposure. It's more about how do you engage your stakeholders in your DNA and making these changes happen. And everybody knows that it's a long-term process. So I think it's a very strong hook, and I would say 80% of our discussions also in pure sponsorship matters, even without the crisis, were already about sustainability and purpose.
That's great. So another question regarding the education program. Obviously, that plays very much into your long-term strategy. You mentioned 50 countries. That's quite an amazing achievement to have that implemented. But is that all part of your team's responsibility in terms of the operational delivery of those programs as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We have in the team 2.5 persons in charge of the education program, and I salute their work today. And there are education specialists and behavior change specialists, design thinking specialists who are designing a program to make sure that that program is adapted to the audience. And it has been open source, and we also want to make people understand that it doesn't have to be ocean related. We have people from Ghana, from all over the place, that are not necessarily sailors or not necessarily linked to the ocean, that are using the program because it's fabulous content. It's very experiential, it's very interactive, and what's coming is even more interesting.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So on that point, you're saying it's transferable training and education material. How has been the reaction, or how has it been working or partnering potentially with other international federations? You mentioned you're now doing more work with World Sailing. Have you had opportunities to work alongside other international federations?
Well, the idea is, of course, for us not to think silo and to share as much as possible. So this partnership with World Sailing, and I also have to recognize the involvement of 11th Hour Racing, who's our partner from the beginning, allowing this content to happen, is a very good example in how we, as an event organizer, can have the knowledge and the understanding that can be amplified. So we've adapted our program to the World Sailing topics for the optimists, for example. Of course, you can't sail the ocean race with optimists, which are small boats for the people who don't know about sailing. And it's working very well because it's very adapted to their community. And I really believe that each sport has its own DNA, its own way to talk and to engage with the young generation. And we know that it's a long-term issue that we will need our future generation to get on board.
Yeah, and it's for the next generation. It's as much as it's impacting us. I think about my daughters, and I think, gosh, we've got to leave that legacy behind, and how can we support them? So you mentioned also you're involved with the SDGs, looking at the sustainability. You're doing quite close work with the UN, or what's been the engagement process in that area?
So we are targeting SDG number 14, which is life below water. We had a partnership with UN Environment that was launching in 2017 the Clean Seas campaign. Clean Seas turned the tide on plastic. And we branded one of the boats of the race, and the boat was called Turn the Tide on Plastic, which was a very efficient name because it's also a call to action. And that was also the reason why we thought it was a very powerful way to make the subject aware and engage people, and not only the sailors on board, but all the community around. Yeah. And all our program is based, because we also need to have and liaise with these international frameworks that are pushing the agenda in the right direction. So we have established our 10 goals linked to the SDGs.
Right. Okay, that's great. I mean, again, the breadth of this project, where you've been able to draw on all of the sources and how you've been able to pull it together, is really quite remarkable. I all credit to you and your team for the way you've been able to draw this together. A question on, you mentioned in one of your slides there, you've got to build the relationship with the signing of the agreement. The IOC obviously is a participant in the program, or how are they engaged in this from your side?
So there is no official partnership. There were, at the image we saw, it was during the Ocean Race Summit in Cardiff, and they were also launching the partnership with UN Environment Clean Seas, and they used the Ocean Race Summit in Cardiff to link world sailing, the Ocean Race, UN Environment, and the Clean Seas program to announce it. So our events are also a platform for commitments and for announcements. And of course, we have all the attention of the race. We have all the media who are here around the race. And so those are very efficient events to actually showcase any commitments and any announcements.
Okay. That's wonderful. As you say, getting people together, getting those sort of organizations aligned is one of the key strategies, which is, again, a credit to you. A question just popped up regarding the challenges for, federations. Where to start? And I think this is a really good question, because it's understanding, we're all work in sport. As we kind of touched on before we started the presentation, we quite often, it's easy to get caught in our silos, whether they be sports silos or organizational silos. But where do you, when you started this program, where was the starting point? Were you able to trigger that initial kickoff, if you like? What was it? Where's the starting point, the baby steps?
Yeah, the starting point might be internal. For the Ocean Race, it was a green team that was gathered together to say, this is something we really care about and we need to do something more. And after the success of the Ocean Race, we have received a lot of requests from different types of organizations. So we've created with a group of sustainability professionals, the Blueshift group, who is a network, which is a network of sustainability experts that you can connect with to actually answer all these questions on. We want to get in there, but how on earth can you, take the first steps and go further? So, we are happy to share the knowledge and involve any organization that would like to add sustainability, add purpose to its organization in how to do so.
Okay, great. Well, so hopefully we can leave some links at the end of this video and how to contact you, and of course everyone can reach back. There's another question here that's come in. What are you expecting from a potential host city in terms of sustainability engagement? Good question.
Well, it's a very good question, and with the host cities, it's a very interesting work. Last edition of the race, we had no official requests in place, so that was a lot harder to implement. And this time, we have in the contract we have signed with the 10 host cities welcoming the race, we have integrated sustainability criteria. So it means that we have to have someone in charge at the host city, at least a person of contact that we can interact with, because it was not the case last edition. It was sometimes a nightmare to be able to find who's in charge of electricity, who's in charge of waste, who's in charge of water. So this time we have someone of contact that can connect us with the rest of the group locally. And then we also have a sustainability charter that the host cities have to follow, highlighting absolutely everything that we need to have on site, being prepared to organize a sustainable event. And when they don't have done it, when there's nobody, we are creating sustainable events workshops, and have also to salute the work of Megan Jones in my team, who's really doing an amazing job on that to engage all the people along the way. And we're going before the arrival of the race to engage all the stakeholders on sustainability, understanding what's at stake for them, and helping them to deliver the most sustainable event. And that's pure legacy, because then when we leave, they have the knowledge and they have all the capacity to organize better events in the future.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Great work. I think one of the things as well you just highlighted, you just described, it's not just about plastic or single use. It's about energy. It's about technology. It's about all of the components that make up an event. And I think this is one of the great learnings I've had in recent times, that it's not just recycling. And I think this is a really important aspect for people to grasp and understand. And I think, again, has that been a challenge, getting people's mindset to overcome that sort of single thinking, I guess?
Yeah. It's we are inheriting the wrong systemic approach that we've taken in developing our organizations, whether it's a government or a private sector or even an NGO. We've only focused on the bottom line, and we've completely forgotten to value environmental area, to value the social well-being. It's a big challenge to make people understand that sustainability is not only about environmental issues. I mean, it's certainly not only about recycling. It's a whole new system we need to think about. And it feels overwhelming at times, but in reality, if you highlight all the areas that you need to work on, it's an easy process to implement.
Yeah, because it looks, from my studies and learnings from it in recent years, it's looking upstream as well as downstream. It's not just the event; it's actually the procurement processes. It's how do we do sustainable sourcing? All of that, as you say, it's a big piece of work. But as you say, breaking it down into smaller pieces certainly makes it achievable. And again, demonstrated by what you're doing with Ocean Race.
Exactly, and also we are thinking, it's always the three pillars: people, planet, and profit, or environmental, social, and economic area, and one can't work without the other one. And we build our world just on one economic criteria, forgetting the value of environmental resources that creates the value of what we're creating economically, and social resources. The well-being of the people around us is fundamental for the value, and all of that is creating and reinforcing the economic value. So it's impossible to create one avenue. You need to have a holistic approach, and make sure that all the criteria and boxes are ticked along the way.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think there's it kind of goes into this question here. We've got a couple of minutes, so I'll just finish with this one from Luca. Great comment. I really believe that sport has the power to be the leader of change after this crisis. Sustainability and social aspects should drive the sector. I believe that people can be engaged with this type of events, but how the big association and entity can change their purpose and mindset, not basing everything just on revenues, but more about human revenue. So yeah, the question there, I guess, is, so how can the big association entity change their mindsets and purpose? And I guess the question to you is how you've been able to facilitate that with the work you've been doing with Ocean Race.
Well, that's a fascinating question, because that's the big one, of course. How do you implement behavior change? I've been working in that space for 20 years, and I've been trying to open doors for a while, and suddenly, there's an article or someone, and then specifically on the plastic issue, for example. So there has to be good timing, but it's a behavior change question. And what my learning, and we're digging a lot more on that subject, and we will do that around our next Ocean Summit with an innovation workshop on behavior change, specifically with neuroscientists, with people who have done some research on how make people change behavior. And the crisis at the moment is illustrating a massive behavior change. Why do people change behavior? So you have elements of fear, you have elements of a bit of a selfishness, but one most powerful, I would say, is peer pressure. Totally underestimated. But if we were smart enough to use the peer pressure to make sure that we are implementing change behavior in the right direction, it has a massive impact. And there's lots to be done in that space. Targeted per category. You can't make a child change his behavior the same way as an adult, obviously. But they might be as powerful long term.
I'm just thinking about my 2 and 3 year old daughters and thinking, yeah, my behaviors are different.
But yeah, I think it's make people understand and realize, that most of the time they've left their values at the door of their office, and the more you can bring your values, core values, within your work environment, the world will be a better place.
Yeah, great. A challenge, but something we all need to work on. Okay, so last question. Are there any commonalities or repeatable actions you could steal from or share with or replicate from other ocean races, Clipper Race, Transat, etc., and create a standard? Yeah, good question. Thanks, Guillaume.
We have a very good audience. Yes, I mean, that's the whole purpose of what we are doing. I mean, we don't want to be, we've been able to be privileged enough to lead the way with the amazing partners, a great team to implement that. And we want all that knowledge to be shared. So that's what we've done with World Sailing. That's what we're doing, creating open source, a knowledge center. And I'm in discussions with the offshore racing group in France, who's creating a collective action as well, where we are, of course, ready to share knowledge and there will be new ideas created from those collaboration platforms, because I mean there's no other way. We can't work in silo. We have to share the journey. So it's a plan. It's going to come soon. Check the space.
Fantastic. So, well, on that note, I just want to say thank you. Really want to pay credit to you and your team. An amazing effort and amazing results that we're seeing in the activation and the way that the ocean race has evolved and is really embracing the concept of racing for purpose. Really impressed. And I want to say thank you to all our guests who visited from all around the world. We saw lots of people from New York to Rome to our colleagues here in Lausanne and Geneva. I want to say thank you all for joining us. We'll be posting this out on YouTube, so if you want to revisit it or if you want to catch up. Also, just to repeat, 27th of May, a really important virtual event. We will be able to share those details with Anne-Cécile and with the participants today. And I just want to lastly say thank you, Anne-Cécile, for a great presentation on a really, really important topic. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me and have the occasion to share the journey.
Our pleasure. Yeah, indeed. Take care, everyone, and thanks again for everyone for joining us. Have a great afternoon. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.